Cool. Right, hello everyone, welcome to Agrax and Chill with me, Nolan Reed. Hope things are going good. Sorry if I'm not talking much, I'm drinking a cup of tea. What I'm going to be doing today is painting these guys. So these are two Intercessor Lieutenants, Primaris Lieutenants, and two Intercessor Sergeants with power swords. So I've just started, I've base coated them and coloured them with, washed them with Drakenhof Nightshade just to get the base colour. And I like to do that first just to highlight the details on the model, just so I can kind of see where I'm painting. Just so I can see a bit of definition on the model, really. And I've done a couple of base colours, so I've done a coat of brown on the pouches and all the leather parts. All the parts I want to be brown. I've done a coat of red for things like the helmets on the sergeants and some skulls and little bits on the models, and I've done a coat of Rakarth flesh for the robes. I'm just doing a second coat of Rakarth flesh just to build up the colour and make it smooth, get a smooth finish before I wash it. And so all these colours, brown, red, Rakarth flesh, also done Bugman's glow on the lieutenant with the bare head, this guy in the back here. And once I've blocked in all these colours, I'm going to wash them all with Agrax Earthshade. Oh, actually, before I do that, I'm going to do the gold as well, because that gets washed with... I washed that with Agrax Earthshade as well. Some people use Reikland Flesh Shade for that one. Depends whether you want a sort of bright, kind of coppery coloured gold, or whether you want a more kind of slightly dirty gold. I tend to go for the slightly more dulled gold. It kind of just it looks less fancy, but it looks a little bit more realistic to me. I mean, not that realism matters in Warhammer 40k, but there you go. It really depends just what kind of finish you want on your models, really. But yeah, some people use like, what's the colour of gold? Like Retributor armour, and then Reikland Flesh Shade, and that makes it kind of look slightly coppery, reddy kind of colour. And then like a highlight of Stormhost Silver, which makes it look really, really bright, like nice and bright. Which is kind of what some people do for things like Stormcaster Tales from Age of Sigmar or stuff like that. But just for my Space Marines, I just like to have a little bit more of a dirty gold. So I use Balthazar gold, which is just like the gold that comes with the starter paint set. Which, you know, is I think it's fine for this kind of thing. Doesn't matter if I get a bit of flesh colour on his shoulder pad here, because I'm going to be painting that gold anyway. the best thing to do is to try and avoid the armour, but I mean, I have splodged a little bit on his greave there, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. I'll just go back and correct that after. Well, I suppose I could have started with black before doing all of these colours, but that doesn't matter too much. I'm going to be doing black on the bolter cases and stuff. Just get a bit more paint on the palette. Yeah, and Rakov flesh is for things like robes, it's for things like, I'm using it for the purity seals as well, like the parchment of the purity seals. Again, some people use like Xandri dust for robes and purity seals, but I just wanted a more pale tone on those. Xandri dust is quite a warm, it's quite a rich colour for something like this. I want to get more of a pale colour on it. Well, that looks pretty good. I think there's just a little bit at the back here. Could do with a bit more of an even colour. But then aside from that, I think we're about done on Xandri just for that model. Just a little bit there by the sword, the scabbard. Turn the camera a little bit so you can see a bit better. So yeah, there we go. That'll do for now. Then move on to this fella. Again, he's got a few purity seals. He's got like a tabard, which, if you can see, this has only got one coat on it, so it looks kind of milky and it's showing that blue base coat through. But if I just pop another coat on, of Rakov flesh on the tabard there, you can see that's just building up that colour just way stronger. Hope you guys are all having a nice chilled out day. I certainly am. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to paint and stream and just chill out, really. Just have a nice relaxing day. I suppose I've got a few chores and things to be getting on with later on. I do have a to-do list, but you know what, for now I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to paint away. Just behind this bolt rifle is like this little purity seal, which I'm just picking out now. So these four guys are the last guys I have to do before I've got 500 points of Ultramarines. It's exciting, isn't it? It's always exciting when you reach, or it's not so much exciting, it's, well, exciting because you can start to play games, but it's satisfying when you reach those kinds of milestones, like, oh, I've got 500 points of... It's like little goals. Like I find if I just look at all the models I haven't painted, it's like, oh god, I've got like a mountain of work to do, and it's quite intimidating. But if I just set myself like little little achievable goals. It's like, yeah, I can definitely do that. I can do like these 4 guys in a batch. It's pretty good. Okay, am I happy with that? Just a little bit on the inside of this purity seal, I think. Just there. Oh, and I guess on the back of this purity seal. Quite like having sort of chilled out piano music on in the background. I don't know what you guys think of it, but I just like kind of, you know, music without lyrics. It helps me concentrate a bit better than the alternative, which is like music with a lot of singing and stuff, and I can't really, doesn't help me concentrate at all. It doesn't help me concentrate at all. Actually need to build up a bit more colour on this robe. Still see that it still looks a little bit patchy, which, you know, can happen if you're painting like a very light colour over a dark base coat. It's kind of bound to happen, really. But you just have to keep building up very thin coats. Otherwise your paint job can start to look really lumpy. But if you just gradually build up these thin coats, you'll still see all the really nice detail on your model. And I'm not the person who's best at painting in the world, but you know, hopefully if you're just getting into the hobby, or maybe even if you're not, maybe you'll find something useful in this stream. Doesn't matter too much, but I've just noticed I've missed a little bit on the bottom of this robe. Like I say, it doesn't matter too much because when you sit the model down on the tabletop, nobody's going to see underneath his robe, but well, not in that way, but I mean just like the trim of the robe, nobody's going to see that. Okay. I think that's about done. So that's 2 coats of Ragar flesh on all the models, I think. Now on to brown. Or back to brown, rather. Running out of space on my palette, might have to go and give it a wash in a little bit, but that's fine. Paint's still a little bit thick, so. And again, I generally just like, these are base paints from these are Citadel base paints, or which I got from Games Workshop. I've never really used any other kinds of paints. I mean, people use Vallejo or Army Painter or whatever, but I've always used these since, well, forever really. And it's not that the others are bad, it's just this is just what I'm used to. And I tend to water them down just so they're nice and smooth, I water them down, probably 2 parts paint to 1 part water. But you know, every paint is different, and it depends how old the paint is and what kind of paint you're using, probably like the brand or whatever. But generally for like these Citadel paints, it's I find that about 2 parts paint to 1 part water is about right. Painting this book on the back there. I'm pretty, you know, I've probably been painting these guys about, what, maybe an hour total so far. I mean, I'm not the fastest painter in the world, but I'm pretty happy with how it's progressing so far. Just being careful not to get any of the base colours on the armour that I've done already. It's the most important thing, really. I mean, well, actually, it doesn't matter too much if you do make a mistake. I do it all the time. It is annoying having to go back and correct it, but it's not difficult to do. It's just going back to the other colour and just painting over your mistake. And again, you don't need to like slap loads of paint on these details. It's just enough to get a solid finish. And if you do 2 thin coats, then it's very easy to get a nice finish and not obscure the details. And again, all these colours look when you do a base colour, it looks very flat. Like if you look at what I've got on the armour, there's more depth in the armour because I've washed that armour with ink, or with Drakenhof Nightshade. It's a wash from Games Workshop. But if you look at the other base colours I've done, like the brown or the the robe on this guy, like the colour looks a lot more flat, and that's because I'm going to wash them eventually. But I'm going to wash all these colours using a brown ink. The Agrax shade, which is where this stream gets its name. And that'll just give all those colours like depth. So whether it's red, brown, this kind of like magnolia base coat, this kind of base tone, the flesh tone that I've used for the robes or whatever, and the skin as well of the skin of this guy. I'm gonna just put brown ink on that just to give it more depth, and that'll make all the details pop out. So not much brown on this guy, just a couple of patches on the strap on his bolt rifle. Right, be right back guys, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea. I'll just leave the stream running actually, it doesn't matter. Enjoy Chopin. Hello folks, I'm back with tea. It's 8:30 AM here in the UK, and man, I am already thinking about lunch. It's crazy, right? But I'm a hungry guy. I'm a hungry sort of guy. Again, just mixing a little bit of water into my paint. What I find with when you're doing base coats is your like undercoat, as it were, like when you're just painting straight onto the plastic, you can make that a little bit thicker, and as long as it's running smooth on your palette and you don't see any brush strokes or whatever, doesn't matter. Like, just thin it down a little bit so you don't see the brush strokes. But when you're and then when you're doing like base colors, like your first coat of base colors, especially if it's a lighter color, like you can thin it down a little bit more, but you don't want to thin it down tons more. When it comes to doing like your second coat of base colors, so you just go back over this exactly the same, go back over the, you know, like I'm doing with the brown here, I'm going back over just to build up a more even color. You can thin down your color a little bit more on the second coat, because it just kind of smooths over the finish, really. You don't need to do the same amount of, you don't need to have quite so much pigment on your brush because you're just smoothing out the colour that's already there, really. You don't have to build up so much colour. So again, just a few details here, like these pouches. The holster of his gun. And he's got this strap on his bolt rifle too, which I'll just pick out there. And again, it might look like I'm doing, you know, going over the same parts that I've already painted, which I am. That's kind of the point, really. Like, when I'm going over like a dark blue with a lighter colour, especially like, you know, something that's radically different, like red or brown's quite different, or this flesh colour's super light compared to well, that's a good point, actually. I've got these little, like, I've actually missed these. So on these two models, I've got like a thing on the greave here, which are probably going to do like a flesh colour. It's like a scroll, and the same on like a detail of like a little scroll on the shoulder pad. So I'll just pick those out before I move on, while I remember. So after I've just picked this out with the brown, doesn't matter if I splodge on the gun, because that's going to get painted black and then silver later, so right, that's fine. Actually, I've still got a little bit of brown paint on my palette, so I'll just polish off these brown details, and then I'll go back and do the flesh colour on those scrolls again. And this is the brown you get in the Games Workshop Star kit. I can't remember what it's called. Bestial brown. It's like a medium brown, medium light brown, I guess. But once it gets washed down, it's just this really nice rich brown. I really like it. Like, and again, I'm probably painting a lot of the details on this scabbard. It's all brown for now. I've just blocked in the whole thing brown, but There'll probably be some silver, some gold on there. Like there's little studs, there's little like trim, which I'll probably paint in gold. The belt as well is also brown. Just got to be careful not to splash it on the, splodge any paint on the robe. Looks okay to me. There's a bit where I've splashed a little bit of flesh colour on his belt just under here, so we'll just cover that up. Great. And then I'll just do these, pick out these, go back to the flesh colour and pick out these little scrolls. Is that what you call them? They're like on a sort of coat of arms where you have like a little, I'm not sure whether you don't really call those scroll, but it's like a little bit of parchment where you usually have like writing on them, like little Latin phrases or whatever. It's like, you might not be able to see it on the camera because it's all painted in dark blue, but it's just this kind of, just this part here. Which maybe I should have done after painting the trim gold because it's quite tricky. I might actually paint that gold and come back to this detail after. Which again, guys, like, you don't have to follow the exact order of the colours I'm doing here, just do whatever's convenient for the particular model that you're painting. It looks pretty messed up there, doesn't it? Splashed there a little bit, but that's fine, I can kind of fix it. And again, like, when I wash the brown ink over, it'll be fine. I'll fix that. Might be able to just wipe it. If you do sort of splash anywhere, sometimes you can find that you can just wipe the excess paint away with your brush, just the part where, there we go. So I've just corrected that. And if you keep the, especially if you keep the colour wet when it's on the model, it won't dry and it won't stick to the coat below, so you can just start to wipe it away. There we go. I've fixed it. Just need a point on my brush just to correct this a little bit. Just rubbing it away. I'm just getting that point. Same on the other side. But yeah, it's going to be quite tricky getting a neat line of gold underneath this particular detail. But it'll be okay. I can always correct it after. And again, like, painting miniatures, a lot of the, you can make your models look really nice by just following the lines on the miniature, you know, you don't have to do much freehand stuff, you're just following, you know, it's almost like, a lot of the time, especially when you're doing this, you know, highlighting is a bit different, or, you know, doing freehand stuff, but a lot of the time it's almost more like a paint by numbers than actual painting. It's like following the lines of the miniature rather than it's very different to, you know, painting a flat canvas. Because like obviously if you're trying to paint something on a canvas, you're trying to make a two-dimensional thing look three-dimensional. You know, you're basically having to create an optical illusion, whereas all you have to do with a miniature is make a small model look bigger. And that's when, you know, highlighting and things like that come in. But yeah, you don't have to do... It's not quite as... It might seem like an obvious thing to say. Like, oh, painting a miniature is different to painting a painting. No shit. But, I'm gonna actually do this little... There's like a little curly bit there. If I just turn the model and you catch the light, I'm actually gonna do that gold. But this this part here I'm gonna do in this parchment colour. And again, like, you might be able to see that because I'm using a very light colour and a very dark colour, it doesn't like give you 100% coverage, as it were. Which is fine, because you just go back and paint that on later. And one of the things with details like this, it looks quite rough because I've just painted the surface of it, but there's actually, like, because it's a raised detail, if you just make sure you pick out, this is important for trim as well, just make sure that you pick out, like, the side of the raised detail, and then it stands out a lot more. Don't go mad, don't go too mad, because then you'll end up painting the armour. But you just make sure you pick out the entirety of the detail rather than painting on the surface. And I have actually painted a little bit of the armour there, but that's alright, I can probably just wipe that away. Yep, there we go. And just with a little bit of water on my brush, just wipe that away. And the same on the other side, just wipe away anything that you get on the armour. So you've got a nice defined line between all of your details. And that's all there is to it, really. I'm just going to paint like a line along the edge just to, because I've rubbed a little bit of paint off of that detail now. Just being careful not to get the armour. There we go. And again, when you come to wash all these details, a lot of your mistakes will get covered up. Because your brown wash just washes over everything, and yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Just notice there's a few little folds of the robe here that I've missed. Again, that's fine. Right. What's next? red, I think, which on a lot of these, on this guy, it's just purity seals in this one, skull on his shoulder pad. There's also a skull on his helmet, which, lieutenants do have this like white and red stripe down the center of their helmet, so I'll pick that out. That'll be the very last thing that I do, because I'll do white last, and then it's got like a wide stripe of white, and then a very narrow stripe of red, and that will be probably the last thing that I paint. Just to polish it off, just a little bit of detail. Okay, so red. This is Mephiston red. Again, it comes in the starter set, the Citadel starter set. And I don't need a lot, especially for this first one. I just need enough to pick out the purity seals and just that one skull on his shoulder. It's getting quite old, this paint. Like, I've had it a while. But I don't need a lot, just so yeah, like I say, it's a bit thick and a bit old, so just put a bit more water in it than usual and just pick out the purity seals. Again, it looks like quite a bright blood red, so it doesn't really look like wax at the moment. A lot of people use pink, weirdly, or yeah, Screamer pink for that purity seal wax kind of colour. Because when you wash it, the pink kind of turns into red when you wash brown over it. But I'm more of a fan of the like deep red wax. So what I do is I paint it blood red, and then when you wash it brown, it turns into like a deep red. So fine. And just make sure, like when it comes to painting purity seals, like you pick out the sides, because especially when you're working with like a blue base coat, you want to build up that like nice blood red colour rather than have it looking like a transparent red and it ending up looking sort of purple. And I think there's just one purity seal on this guy, just in the middle there, but because it's so prominent, definitely worth taking your time over. And then, so lieutenants have this, like I say, they have this white stripe and white and red stripe on their helmets. Veteran sergeants, well, normal, ordinary intercessor sergeants will just have all Space Marine sergeants will just have a red helmet, so like a red helmet like this guy. But if you're a veteran sergeant, which I think I'll paint these guys as veteran sergeants, a bit nicer to have a bit more detail. What they actually have is a red helmet with a white stripe down the centre, and sometimes a white face mask as well, so you see the helmet is split into this, like, there's like the helm and then there's this mask. Sometimes that is painted white as well, which I think would look really cool actually, if that was painted white too. But for now, just paint the whole helmet red. All over the armour. Looks like I may have to do, I'll see when it dries, it looks a little bit streaky still, the red over the blue, so I may have to do a third coat, but I'll see. But yeah, I think you can get away with like 3, as long as your paints are nice and thin, like I say, you can get away with doing lots of coats on your models. Yeah, I think I may have to do a third coat on that helmet, but bit more red paint on my palette. again, this paint is quite old and thick, so just thin it down like until it's the right. You're looking for like I say, you know, I often say to people who are just starting out, like, thin your paints and use, like, roughly use 1 part water to 2 parts paint. But that is not always the case, because it depends how old your paint is, it depends what kind of paint it is, but probably the brand. But you know, so you shouldn't use ratios to mix your paints. You should use like the consistency of the paint on the palette. And I get people asking me about that all the time, actually, even though to me it's like such a basic thing. But I mean, it is, well, I suppose it is a basic thing, but if you're just starting out, like, you don't necessarily know this stuff. But having said that, like, there's plenty of places that do loads of tutorials, so maybe I probably don't need to do another tutorial just to sort of saturate, you know, YouTube or whatever with tutorials of sanctimonious assholes just saying, thin your paints down. Which, yeah, you should, but you should thin your paints down, but, like, you don't need me to tell you that, probably. Although, having said that, I do spend a lot of time on Reddit, like the Warhammer 40k Reddit and stuff, and the number of people who say, like, how do I thin my paints, what am I doing wrong, it's quite high. So, like, you know, maybe I should maybe I should become one of those sanctimonious assholes. Although, like, guys, if you do want to, like, if you are just getting into the hobby, like, you're probably not watching the stream if you're just getting into the hobby, but if by chance you've just gone, you know, you've just gone on Twitch and you've just gone, oh, what's this guy doing? He's paying 4K. Like, if you are just getting into the hobby, check out Warhammer TV on YouTube. It's like the official Warhammer channel. They do like painting tutorials, so you can probably find one for whatever model it is that you've got. Like, there's tutorials about thinning your paints, there's tutorials about using different kinds of paints, there's tutorials about how to base your miniatures, like, there's tutorials about conversions, kit bashes, head swaps, like, even the basic thing like building miniatures, you know, all those kinds of things that you might be asking as a beginner, which I get people. I seem to spend half my life on Reddit just answering these people. If you are a complete beginner, check out Warhammer TV, because their tutorials are great, and like they do some really nice ones where, like, they kind of do two kinds, where one is like get your miniatures on the tabletop as kind of quickly as possible, which, like, I mean, if you're into gaming like I am, and I don't spend forever edge highlighting my miniatures, or like doing, like, I don't know, non-metal metallics, or like all this crazy advanced stuff. I just tend to you know, all you really need to do is put a few colours on your model and wash it, and then it's ready for the tabletop, pretty much. And that's pretty much the level to which I paint, like 99% of the time. I mean, if I may go back to models that I've done like that and then edge highlight them or whatever later when I've got nothing better to do with my life. And, like, don't get me wrong, some people do some really... I'm just going back to brown here just because I noticed the brown coat on this this little canister was I probably missed painting it brown before. The second coat of brown. But like, people make some absolutely gorgeous models, you know, paint some gorgeous models. But I, you know, maybe you're like me and you like painting, but you don't want to spend forever on it, or like, you're a sort of paint to game person, and like you don't want to just turn up with unpainted models or just base coated models, and you want to, like, you know, paint your models well, or to at least to a sort of decent standard. Or maybe you're a kind of person who likes the painting and the gaming equally, and you don't want to, yeah, like I said, you don't want to spend forever, and you're not entering a painting competition, so you know, you might just want your models to look decent enough on the tabletop. And if that is you, you've come to the right place, because that is how I tend to paint things. But yeah, like I was saying, Warhammer TV, they do a kind of get your models on the tabletop as quickly as possible, which is great for beginners and for people who like to game. But they also do like these crazy in-depth tutorials, like check out the one on how to paint Marneus Calgar, and Jesus Christ, it's something else. Like, and the model is the model they end up with is really, really nice. So, you know, and especially if it's a character or something, you might want to spend a little more time on it than what I do. Okay, so I might so what have I done on these so far? I've base coated them with base coated the models with Macragge Blue, washed them all over with Drakenhof Nightshades. I've painted the skin with Bugman's Glow. I've painted the robes and the parchment with Rakar Flesh. I've painted the purity seals and the helmets and some other details like little skulls and things with Mephiston Red. And I think this is Bestial Brown. It doesn't say on the pot, but I've painted pouches and straps and leather details in what I think is Bestial Brown. And I've done 2 coats of those things. Except, well, okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish off, because I only did 1 coat of Rakar Flesh on these parchment parts, so I'm just going to finish that off before I go. That'll just be the last thing I do on stream for now. And then I'll come back and I'll do the gold next, which is exciting. Because I find that once you get the gold down, they really start looking like Ultramarines. So when you get the gold down, this is like the trim colour. It's the colour on the chest eagle. Well, it's the trim colour for my Ultramarines because I do them. They are Ultramarines 2nd Company. So every Space Marine companies, there's like a company colour. So gold is the colour of the 2nd Company. White is the 1st Company, and there's a whole bunch. Like, you can find it on them. What's the Warhammer 40k Wikipedia called? Is it Lexicanum? Might be Lexicanum. Either way, just Google like Space Marine Company colours and you'll be able to find them. But mine are 2nd Company, and that's gold. So you do the shoulder pad trim in the company colour. Yeah. And 1st Company also paint their helmets the company colour, I think. So if you're a veteran of the 1st Company, you paint your helmet white. And again, I've done exactly what I said not to do. And I have painted a line of flesh onto my blue armour. But it's okay, you just rinse your brush off and rub some water on it, keep it wet, and then just move it away. It's like turning the paint into sort of like a milky consistency on the model and then just wiping it off. There we go. Right, and that's it. So far I've used the Crag Blue, Drakenhof Nightshade, Mephiston Red, Rakarth Flesh, and I think Bestial Brown. And then I'll move on to, next time I'll move on to some Balthasar Gold, and then wash all those colours with a nice Agrax Earth shade just to give them some depth. So that's it from me, guys, for now. I will catch you later.